Drive out of the village of Canton on Route 68, and it starts to get hilly. It's the very foothills of the northwestern Adirondacks. And about 5 miles on the left, there's a black and red van parked at a white house with a big logo that reads, "No Dogs Left Behind." It's a guy who rescues dogs from China, Afghanistan, Ukraine, and brings them there to this former kennel outside Canton. It's drawn the curiosity of the whole town and the complaints of neighbors and the scrutiny of the town board. The story behind No Dogs Left Behind on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com.
Hey, I'm David Summerstein. It's Wednesday, August 16th. First up, one of the top New York State forest rangers died by suicide last week. David Cornell was 52 years old. He was serving as an assistant director of the statewide force in Albany. Cornell's death comes a little over a year after another top forest ranger also died by suicide. Emily Russell reports.
David Cornell began his career as a forest ranger back in 2000. He graduated from the academy with about a dozen other rangers, including Rob Projaculo, who now works in the Adirondacks.
Dave was just a super quiet, calm guy. Yeah, he was a really good field ranger.
For most of his career, Cornell worked in the DEC's Region 6. That region includes St. Lawrence, Jefferson, Lewis, Oneida, and Herkimer counties. Before he became a ranger, he was an airplane mechanic in the Marines. He used that skill to serve as a helicopter hoist operator while he was a ranger. Cornell was awarded a Liberty Medal in 2018 by the state for helping save a motorcycle crash victim. He died by suicide last Friday. Ranger Rob Projaculo said it took him by complete surprise.
I immediately was shocked by that news, especially for somebody who always seemed to be very calm and collected. And then the next thought that came to my mind was, who's next? Who is out there that needs help and isn't asking for it?
Cornell's suicide comes a little over a year after another top-ranking ranger died by suicide. Captain Chris Costas had been a forest ranger for 23 years, working in the Adirondacks. At the time, Costas's suicide sparked a renewed focus on mental health for rangers. Projaculo says the job is stressful. It can often involve the mental health struggles of other people.
People committing suicide on state lands and overdosing, and mental health folks that are out there. And and then, all the just accidental deaths and rescues that we do in the mountains, all that sort of accumulates.
Rangers do have access to mental health support. Projaculo says he takes advantage of counseling on and off. The most recent Ranger Academy had an embedded mental health team for the first time. Projaculo says their work does involve some really happy and even euphoric moments when there's a successful search or rescue. Those moments can help balance out the tougher times.
You just hope that at any given time you have enough good rescues and searches and firefighting and law enforcement stuff that makes you feel good about what you're doing. But there are definitely dark times for a while.
In a statement on Tuesday, the DEC said it's making emotional support resources available to all employees after Cornell's suicide. According to his obituary, Cornell is survived by his wife, 2 sons, and his parents. Emily Russell, North Country Public Radio.
A new dog shelter has been operating in St. Lawrence County since March. A man from Long Island rescues dogs all over the world and is bringing them to a property outside Canton. The problem is the shelter is operating against local zoning codes, and neighbors are complaining about the noise. Lucy Grindon reports on an issue that's become increasingly contentious for the town board.
Jeff Berry is the head of No Dogs Left Behind. The nonprofit opened its first dog shelter in the U.S. in March, right on State Route 68 in Canton. Barry's dogs run ahead of him as he shows me around the property.
Come on, guys, let's go. Come on, Lalai.
Barry says he's rescued dogs from dangerous situations around the world, in places like Ukraine, Afghanistan, and China. Sometimes dozens of dogs all at once.
I have a passion for dogs. I love dogs.
One of his dogs keeps circling back to his side like a boomerang. Barry said he picked him up in Beijing.
The traffickers were chasing him with nets, and I opened up my door, and he jumped in my car. He became my sidekick. He's a very smart dog. And a very loyal dog. He never takes his eyes off of me.
What is this guy's name again?
Prince Wanzi.
Apart from Barry's own little pack of 6 dogs, plus 2 fosters, who live with him, there are about 40 dogs currently at the shelter. There were about twice that many a couple months ago, but some have been adopted or have gone to foster homes. Barry says he intends to keep about 120 dogs at the shelter at a time, on average. And he says Canton is the perfect location.
I love having everything in proximity. The airport here, Ogdensburg Airport here, it's an international airport. It's 29 minutes away. I loved being 7 minutes from the town, and this area being zoned rural, that I could do what I want to do.
The problem is he can't just do what he wants to do. At least not according to Canton Town zoning code, which doesn't currently allow for dog shelters. Right now, only dog kennels are allowed. But the town code is supposed to be updated soon, and the draft of the new version does include a provision for shelters. Michael McQuaid is the town code enforcement officer.
If our new code was adopted, it's an allowed use. Unfortunately, it wasn't adopted.
In the meantime, the shelter has been operating since March in violation of code. And over the past few months, multiple neighbors have been complaining about the noise. Margaret Mauk lives about half a mile away from the shelter. She spoke at last week's Canton Town Board meeting.
Today makes 161 days in violation of the town zoning code, figured from March 1st.
Mauk submitted a petition at the meeting with more than 100 signatures on it, asking the board to consider issues like noise, environmental impact, and animal welfare. The St. Lawrence County Planning Board raised some of the same concerns back in June, when they officially turned down No Dogs Left Behind's application for a special use permit. The board cited concerns about the potential environmental impact of dog waste and urine and said an environmental assessment should be made. Leslie Clark also lives near the shelter, less than a quarter mile away. She's filed more noise complaints than any other neighbor.
It's ear-piercing. It's like my home has been invaded. That's how I feel. It's like this juggernaut came down from the sky, and it just really it's not been the same since.
Town Planning Board Chair Ian McKellar says this issue has been causing a lot of turmoil. He says people brought it up at the most recent Town Planning Board meeting.
There was a lot of comments from the public expressing concerns about No Dogs Left Behind. They're concerned about the welfare of the animals. They're concerned about the noise. They're concerned about the waste disposal. We've been hearing about all of those concerns for months.
Town Supervisor Marianne Ashley declined to comment on the situation at the town board meeting last Wednesday night. The shelter's buildings have been used as a dog kennel for decades, called Maple Ridge Kennels. No Dogs Left Behind is leasing the space from the owners, Stiles and Deb Bridges. Deb Bridges said she didn't think there'd be a problem.
Looking at the new zoning laws, with kennel and shelter being in there, I just never thought it would be an issue.
Bridges says what some of the neighbors want is unrealistic.
I mean, what's the standard? Is the standard absolute silence? That's unfair.
When I visited the shelter, it was raining hard, so all the dogs were inside. From outside in the rain, you could barely hear them. Inside, they made a lot of noise when I walked down an aisle between 2 rows of cages. Barry says the dogs should be expected to bark when there's a disturbance. Last week, Barry pleaded guilty to 1 count of causing a nuisance by allowing loud and persistent barking. He paid a $50 fine. But that won't necessarily affect what the town board does next. The town could make an exception to its current code. Or if the town wanted to force the No Dogs Left Behind shelter to close, it would have to take the issue to court. Lucy Grindon, North Country Public Radio.
We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Ben Cato of Jay and Caretaker of Canton, both from our Underscore project. You can find out more at ncpr.org/_. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.